politics. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, my brother, my homie, Andre Taylor. Andre, I had you come here because, you know, you and I have had a relationship for a long time. We've had a lot of conversations behind the scenes, and I wanted people to hear, you know, what our conversation is about and how much game that you have to give to the people. Can you tell them a little bit about your background?
Yeah, before I do that, Ted, let me just say this. I'm going to preference it because sometimes when I go into my background first, it's so provocative that that's what people focus on, right? And we want them to focus on it, but let me preface it. I've been married 25 years. Got a son that graduated Yale, daughter graduated UCLA. I just wanted to throw that out there before I let them know. Most people know me from the Hughes Brothers movie, American Pimp. The Hughes Brothers did The Book of Eli. Their first movie was Minister Society, you know, and they did American Pimp back in late 90s, and they hired me as a technical advisor, plus I was in the film, right? So a lot of people know me from that. You know, I've done a lot of growing from that time, you know, overcoming a whole bunch of things, right? But let me just get into it like this, Tev, because, you know, when we get into it,
we get into it,
right?
Right.
I have perspectives of fatherhood, of manhood, from in the streets, successfully, the biggest guy in the game when I was doing it, and also as a married man. So when I'm talking from all those perspectives.
And you've also been successful in politics.
Absolutely.
That same type of leadership, which is why I'm always, as you know, advocating for people to get involved in a process that comes from every walk of life, because certain walks of life held you to a certain accountability that you're talking about, to be able to know that having your word and knowing who you are and your name meaning everything. Right. You did some phenomenal things in politics, and you were able to take that same skill set and translate that over. Tell us a little bit about that and how you were able to make that happen in the
My brother,
space.
Shay Taylor, was killed in 2016. I was in LA. I came back to Seattle. I started my organization, Not This Time. And I thought about what I'm gonna do because they've been killing our people all over. Now it's hit home. How are you going to deal with this, Dre? Before I came to Seattle, I'd already had a platform. I'd been on Montel, I've been on TBN, you know, so I already had a platform. So I thought about what I'm going to do with this situation. And what I discovered is why they keep beating us. Why they keep beating us with this particular situation with police-involved shooting is they take advantage of our trauma. Somebody said, what do you mean they take advantage of our trauma? Because we're reactionary because of what has happened to us in this country. Right? So when a shooting happens, what we do is we go act out, right? We'll burn some stuff, turn cars over. And so what we do is we lose the narrative every single time. So now the media is not focused on the initial shooting. The media is focused on how the community is acting out. And what we don't realize in politics is a narrative fight. So we lose it every single time. So what I said, I'm not going to be reactive, I'm going to be responsive. So when I came to Seattle, I sat down with the chief of police, and I said, you know what? I know I can't bring my little brother back, but I'm still willing to work with you to reduce the incidences of violence. Now, what that did is it shocked her because she was waiting for a reaction, not a response. But what I knew I was doing is I made her engage me on my terms, because now she had to engage me. Because it couldn't be said that this man, you guys killed his brother, but he's still willing to work with you, because the community would wear her out. Her community would. So I kept her engaging me, right? And then one of the fundamental things that I did with police accountability, I said, I don't believe that I have to agree with somebody 100% of the time in order to build with them. And that allowed me and afforded me to be able to build with a lot of people, right? Because generally, if you don't agree with nobody, you're going to cut them off. But that's not how you build. That's not how you build power, right? So I built where I could build. Right? So when I engaged the law enforcement, I engaged politics, I build where I could build. But I had that same temperament, right? Responsive and not reactive. So long story short, in 3 years' time, we was able to pass the law in Washington State. Because Washington State, although liberal, had the worst law in the nation. Worse than Mississippi, worse than anywhere down south. The worst in the nation, because in our law was written, if you can't hold a police officer accountable until you could prove he had malice. Somebody said, what's malice? Well, you have to prove what he was thinking in his mind at the time of the shooting, which is impossible. So for over 30 years, not one officer has ever been convicted of a charge of deadly shooting in Washington State. So I changed that law, right? And today, 4 officers, because of that law that's changed, have been brought up on murder charges in Washington state, and that's not going on anywhere. So not only did we change the law, it's effective. And I did that with those same fundamentals I learned from the streets. So it is transferable, Tesla, and I know you teach that, and I know you tell people that, but people don't believe you. So I'm here as a witness that you could use some of those same fundamentals that you used out there hustling, and you could use it for politics as well.
Why do you think they fear that message? Why do you think they fear shining a light on you and how you've been able to get that done when I've seen many attorneys not be able to get it done, many activists not be able to get it done, many pastors not be able to get it done? What is it about that you think that they fear to show that change that you've been able to make?
Well, the funny thing is that white platforms came to me. I've been interviewed by the New Yorker. The President Trump called me on the phone for the work, right? I've been on Fox News. And I always wonder, all these white platforms are coming, talking about the work, but our platforms never came, right? When I did conversations with the streets where I brought black leaders and professionals from all over the country to Washington, and that's how you came, that's how we got engaged, right? You always said, you know what, Dre? I know how important the work is. Because I told you, I said, why are our people not recognizing the work, right? Because sometimes we're so caught up in entertainment that we don't understand the importance of politics and why in politics, right, if we engage ourselves, that we can change our condition. We don't believe that because we haven't seen it done. But here it is, I've done it. I'm the only one that have done it. And I've done it coming from the streets. And I think that shining light on that somebody from the streets could achieve something, like you said, that nobody has done, lawyers, doctors, people that's graduated Yale, billionaires and all that. I think that's scary. Where did he get this point of reference? Where did he get this information to be able to do that when his mama was a hoe and his daddy was a pimp and he ultimately went into the lifestyle, right? I didn't graduate from Yale. I didn't graduate from school like that. Where did he get this information from? That's scary to people. Because a lot of white platforms and white organizations in the country feel like they own all the knowledge because they have all the Ivy League universities, Yale, Cambridge, Harvard, they think they own the knowledge. But here it is, a man that come from the streets was able to actually defeat them with information that I learned off the streets. And I think that's scary because that can empower the littlest person in the ghetto. That can empower him to believe in himself, to know that, man, Dre come from a worse case than I came from, and if he could do that, we could do it too. What it is important that I can give some information that it can affect other areas of the country, because white people came to me because they want to know how I did it. George Soros people came to me, they want to know how I did it. I didn't tell them how I did it, but I do want to share that with our people.
Now, you mentioned not burning it down and not being reactionary, but you also recognize the frustration, that people have, and you saw it when we're old enough to remember the LA riots and how people were like, forget that, we need to do something different because they're not paying attention. How were you able to get them to say, okay, let's do something different, let's look at this a different way, while also being criticized by others that did not want to see you in the position? So fighting your own, fighting for your own people and fighting your own at the same time.
When I first came back to Washington, Seattle, I never got any support from our community. First of all, oh, he used to be a pimp, or he's doing this, that, and the other. No support. So I know our community needed to see the work. The motto of my organization was do the work. So I just started doing the work. Another fundamental thing I did in building campaign is I went to every community. I went to the Latino community, Asian Pacific Islander community, the Native community, Samoan. I went to all communities leadership and said, listen, come and join me. Because individually they have whooped us, but they can't beat everybody. So I got every family, from white families and every family that had experienced a police shooting. And I put their families at the forefront to tell their story. What that did, Teslin, is it connected every community. And not only that, it made white people not be in it for us. They weren't coming over here to fight for us. Asians wasn't fighting for us because they were seeing this was happening to them. And so every community was fighting for themselves. So I had to show a self-interest. What is it for you? I wanted to let everybody know this wasn't a black problem. This was an American problem, right?
And you did that all while not compromising your blackness.
Oh,